Welcome to Cascade Conversations. Join the Cascade Partners team and our network of trusted advisors as we work to demystify the details, terminology, and strategies of acquisitions, divestitures, financings, performance improvement, and restructuring.
A lot of value drivers are quantitative in nature, but there's a whole host of qualitative things that come out that are nuanced, that buyers look for. Organization, having everything buttoned up. Can you speak to some of those qualitative things that you're seeing or you're putting in place as you're engaging with the client?
Sure. I mean, the number 1, 2, and 3 is the people. I mean, that's not something you can really put on paper, and it's something that comes through throughout a process. And so if we were to say that the number 1 detractor from value and from transferability of a company is risk, the number 1 risk is owner dependence. And so the more that you can demonstrate that your business runs without you as the hopefully retiring owner in the near future, the better. And so that would be probably, like I said, 1, 2, and 3 on the list. There's a lot of other qualitative things, like, for example, having great SOPs, having great standard operating procedures that are documented, that are transferable, that are like having a great training program for people, right? These are intangible assets that you can just overwhelm buyers with great data. And this is non-quantitative data, but you can overwhelm them. Oftentimes I think about the number of documents that end up in a data room, because some of the data room tools, they tell you how many pages are in there. There often is a sense of like the weightiness of a lot of information that makes a buyer comfortable. It's like, wow, there's too much data here for me to even look at. Right? They must be doing something right.
Document density.
Document density, exactly.
A newly coined term.
So, but yeah, I mean, I would say that definitely that the owner dependence is definitely, if you can address that, and it just makes a world of difference. And then it comes into, when you get into management presentations, right? If the owner's doing all the talking, the buyer's picking up on that.
Right.
If the owner's sitting at the side of the table and he's got a management team of 4 men and women that are answering all the questions very, very competently, that's a game changer.
Right, yeah. So we started this thread around the qualitative things, the team, the damn team, as Bo Schembechler might say. Yeah, that's fantastic. And we get into that because the owners are so enthusiastic to tell their story, but we try to coach them to
chill out a little bit.
Yeah, just recognize that there's a team behind you, and that's what largely people are looking to purchase. Maybe we shift back to the quantitative side. What are the things you help management think through as they're going to market? What are some of the obvious, but maybe some of the more subtle quantitative measures?
So the obvious stuff is you got to have a clean monthly closing of your books. Through the sale process, you're going to refresh your numbers a minimum of 3 to 4 times, and you're also going to have issued a forecast that's going to be in the initial materials. And to your point about the owner focusing on running the business, there's nothing more important than making sure the business performs through the sale process. You don't have a decline in performance, which is we're kind of an insurance policy against that. We play that role by helping, not get them too bogged down. So if you've got that process in place, what part of that is the forward-looking information. So we talked about pipeline. That's a huge aspect of any sale process, is the more you can provide forward-looking data. And for clients, this is like sometimes one of the hardest things to do. I know you don't want to commit to future views. You hate doing it. But I'm telling you, it's worth it. You're not signing up to this is exactly what's going to happen. You're saying these are the things we're chasing. Here, we're chasing $50 million worth of opportunity. We're hoping we're going to close 15 million of it. And having that data is just crucially important. And then the one other thing that I'll say is just kind of, these can be like these one-off analyses, is anytime there's a potential risk in the business, it's really trying to take 2, 3, 4 layers deeper in the data to try to address that. And I'll give one really useful example, I think, that might apply to other businesses. We had a client that had heavy exposure to one of the big 3 automakers. And so they had 40+% of their revenue was coming from this one customer. And so we knew this was going to be an issue going into the process. So we said, okay, well, tell us how is this work sourced? And they said, well, the work is purchased by the plants. We're like, oh, that's good. Okay, so how many plants are there that you serve? Well, we serve, I think it was 27 plants. Okay, now, does that mean there's 27 different decision makers? Yes. Does that mean, do they coordinate together? No. They're ordering themselves. There's also central purchasing, but so you have 28 customers. So then we said, okay, well, let's go take a look at the data because we have projects and let's see where they came from. And we were able to demonstrate that essentially that 40% of revenue there was no more than like 4 or 5% concentration in any one decision maker. So we said, so if you mess up at this plant, is it going to affect this plant? And they had an example. And so then we were able to include that in the story, and we're able to get in that case, we were able to get a really great outcome for them. And the investment bank, we had done this analysis prior to involving the investment bank, but that was featured all over the materials, right? They took that data set we created, and it was 5 or 6 different pages and charts and things like that. And it was super helpful because then you're able to proactively address that issue.
It's crazy you bring that up because we literally just did that for a mandate we're on now because it showed customer concentration risk, but they serve almost 90% of the industry that has 9 manufacturing, but it's the warehouse and the manufacturing facility that are the decision makers.
Right.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I mean, another example would be like in a construction company where it's referral led, but then the actual customer might be, so there might be a consultant that also often recommends them in, right? But they're never paying for the services. So knowing that they have 50 referral sources, even if there's only 5 guys that actually source them the work, so it's really just, like I said, peeling back those layers, digging a couple layers deeper, and really being smart about how you present that information.
One of the things I find interesting, and it's a human psychology, I think, experiment, is many of our owners and founders, they've been running the business for multi-decades. Mm-hmm. And they just have a good intuition about their business, right? So they just know what's going to happen, plus or minus. They know their customers. The customers will call them. But when a buyer comes in and is investigating the investment opportunity, they don't know the business.
Right.
And so they want to ask a lot of questions and try to understand. That causes some friction and some frustration along the way, as if they're challenging the owners to the assumptions or to the intuition. Have you come across that in your work?
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to. How do we continue to coach and suggest to owners that this isn't an inspection necessarily or an investigation of integrity, but rather an education process?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this gets at the fundamental difference between we'll just use private equity because they're the biggest buyer group out there, a private equity investor and an entrepreneur, right? An entrepreneur likely got into that role because, I mean, it could be everything from they got fired from a job and they were unemployable to at age 18, they started their own business. Like, they all have great, one of the reasons why I love working with self-made business owners is because they just have great stories.
Great stories, absolutely.
Right?
Yep. Then
you have, on the other side of the table, you have a private equity professional who likely went to the Wharton School, they've got an MBA, they've probably never turned a wrench. And so their concern is, and they have an investment committee, they have a boss, they have all these things that they're dealing with that an entrepreneur doesn't deal with. Right? And so their concern is they're very much like trying to suss out where the risk is and make sure that they don't make a mistake. And the entrepreneur is like, mistakes, whatever, as long as I have a good enough batting average, who cares, right? And so that is often a place where we just, rather than trying to fight that battle with them, we say, I understand it's a stupid request. Let us answer it, or give us access to the data and we'll come back to you. And if you sign off on this response, then we can move forward. And because it's very difficult to, entrepreneurs just tend to have very strong personalities, right? And that's part of what makes them great.
I feel like Cascade tries to differentiate ourselves because 5 of the 6 managing directors have run businesses.
Right.
And we've been entrepreneurs and not just transactionally related. So
Yes.
we have a ton of empathy for that. We've also been on the buy side.
Right.
So we understand investment committees and putting capital to work. So playing that intermediary where you can understand both sides of it, I think is an important way. We try to differentiate
100%.
ourselves and making sure that our business owners know that we have a ton of respect for that Wharton MBA,
Right.
despite the fact that he might not have turned a wrench, but also a ton of respect for the entrepreneur. This feels intrusive. But
Well, and that's we call it being bilingual, and I think that's where you guys fit as well, because you're a firm that primarily serves that demographic, right? It's to some extent, I always joke, it's sometimes easier to do professional. It'd be easy just to serve the private equity, go after private equity sell side work, right? Once you get a good relationship, it becomes very smooth. Entrepreneurs, it's like very bumpy, but that's kind of where the fun comes in. And what I tell them is, I'm like, give me 6 to 9 months through the selling process. You just have to suspend some of your opinions and just say, I want to let you coach me through this, right?
Yeah.
I'm not just going to say no when you give me what I think is a stupid request. I'm going to say, okay, I don't know how to answer that question. Help me figure it out.
Help me, absolutely.
Yeah.
As we come to the conclusion of this conversation, what about the Doescher Group do you want to let our audience know more about?
So, yeah, I mean, we've kind of gone through kind of what we do. We did create a page on our website where we'd like to direct you to go if you want to check out more about us. It is www.doeschergroup.com/cascade. It is Doescher is spelled Doescher, for those of you keeping score at home. But that page will take you to an ebook that we wrote this past year, which is called the Unsolicited Offer Playbook. And as Eric knows, there is a whole industry around trying to get to owners before Cascade is able to advise them. And so there are a lot of you as business owners who might be watching this, have gotten these emails, have received these cold calls, and if they catch you in a weak moment, you might actually respond to it. And that is a whole book about what to do when that happens. And I guess I can spoil it, which is stop and get organized before you start engaging too far down that path, is our advice. But it's a good book. It's a good reference tool. And I think it ties into a lot of what we discussed today.
Absolutely. And for our audience, what we do as an investment bank, if just think of us as a resource before you actually want to sell, and we can introduce you to our partners like Craig, and that's all. We want to be a resource for you, an educational resource, and open up partnerships like the Doescher Group. So great pleasure to be with you, Craig.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time, and appreciate the audience for taking the time. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for Cascade Conversations. For more information, please visit cascade-partners.com or call 248-430-6266.